Hello and welcome to Climb's podcast series Advancing Vietnam with me Vlad Savin as your host. Throughout the following episodes, we're looking to answering relevant questions about doing business in Vietnam. What are the opportunities and challenges faced by investors entering the market or existing players in major industries? We will seek to understand the business environment from a cultural, local mindset and how to deal with compliance from an international perspective. What are the major risks faced by businesses active in the region and how to overcome them? We will dive deep into the compliance environment in Vietnam, discussing processes and procedures, changes in laws, latest official updates from the authorities, and financial governance planning for businesses active in Vietnam. We at Ecommerce consider compliance a major asset for foreign investors operating in Vietnam. We emphasize this aspect when speaking with our clients, and we make sure they understand the significant benefits of being compliant. In this episode, I'm discussing with Matthew Lowry, managing partner at Ecommerce Vietnam, about requirements, processes, and procedures for foreign investors seeking to start an e-commerce business in Vietnam, delving into the approval levels with various ministries, business lines, types of licenses, and restrictions for certain activities. Matthew, welcome to our new episode of Advancing Vietnam podcast series. Happy to have you here for another interesting and relevant topic for 2021.
Thank you, Vlad. I'm looking forward to sharing more about the e-commerce and operating online in Vietnam.
Matthew, companies in Vietnam can only undertake activities for which they are licensed. We generally involve specific business line registration along with sub-license registration for certain business lines. For foreign investors and e-commerce activities, this can be somewhat complicated. But before we commence clarifying this, let's start first with a specific definition of e-commerce activities from a Vietnamese legal perspective. What is interpreted by the government as an e-commerce activity?
So e-commerce is defined by the government to Decree 52 as activities in the conduct of a part or all of the whole process of commercial activities by means of electronic connected to the internet, mobile telecommunication networks or other open networks. Now that's a convoluted connection of words. Just to go back a little bit, the WTO refers to e-commerce as the production, distribution, marketing, sale or delivery of goods and services by electronic means, which is probably a little bit cleaner. And even that you can still interpret in different ways. So look, fundamentally, all these definitions come down to create, something that generally operate to create commercial transactions via electronic means. So that's ultimately e-commerce is commercial transactions via electronic means. That's the best way we can put that in synopsis from those various legal definitions.
That makes sense. And e-commerce activities are represented in different forms and by several electronic means. And according to Vietnamese laws, which are these three kind of e-commerce operations?
Yeah, so they've separated into three different areas, as you say. So it's either e-commerce activities conducted via a website, so your standard www. Transaction site. You've got e-commerce activities conducted via an application store, an electronic device, so you've got your app via the App Store or Google Play, and e-commerce activities conducted via mobile telecommunications network. So if someone's doing purchases via SMS or via the WAP portal with their telecommunications company. So it's trying to define anything which can be electronic in essence.
Correct. And going back to the websites, there are four types of e-commerce websites: e-commerce sales website, e-commerce trading floor, online promotion website, and online auction website. Can you briefly explain what are the particulars for these type of activities of the websites?
Yeah, so most e-commerce sales, most businesses are generally dealing with the first type mentioned, the e-commerce sales website. The standard, I have a company, I set up a website, I sell my products on the website. So most traders with their own website, their own .com domain, .vn domain, are simply doing e-commerce sales website, the most basic. An e-commerce trading floor is where you've got websites selling products from a range of different merchants. So other traders on their platform. So your standard Lazada, Tiki, Shopee, they're all e-commerce trading floors in the definition of how it works. An online promotion website is more about vouchers, selling services and connected things to a range. So you're looking at Hot Deal and the deals websites and the catch of the day type style of things. They would fall in addition to online promotion website. So you need to have registered that separately. And the fourth one you mentioned is the online auction website. So you've got, I can't think of any top of my head, the Vietnamese websites, but those which are doing auction trading, price adjustments, so that you're actually selling goods via the website, but more of the eBay style auctions than your traditional Tiki, Lazada, Shopee, which is a fixed price commercial transaction.
And is it possible for a single e-commerce website to integrate different types of e-commerce activities into a single site? And what would be an example here in Vietnam of such business?
Oh, absolutely. So your Tikis and your Lazadas are probably covering 3, potentially. They may even have 4 of those things, but yeah, absolutely they would be. So they will have their own products on the website, they will be selling other third-party merchants, and they're often selling vouchers and discounts and deals on the websites as well. So they would cover all 3 of them. So absolutely, you can combine multiple ones. You need to be licensed for all of those activities that you want to undertake with the ministry, but yes, there's nothing stopping you doing more than one of those activities within your e-commerce platform.
Now, traders, organizations, or individuals which own these websites are responsible for registration of the website with the ministry. What is the general process for registering an e-commerce website, and which ministries are involved here?
So when you're dealing with e-commerce or trading, it's almost always the Ministry of Industry and Trade or the relevant Department of Industry and Trade in the province for certain activities. So websites are registered with the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and you need to there's an online portal that you need to create an account in the system with MOIT, make your lodgement, and then you've got to go through and submit, depending if you're going through a normal sales e-commerce website or one of the other 3 websites, and you go through and you then get a tick basically, and that tick shows you're registered. So a good way to test whether someone has registered with the Ministry of Industry and Trade is if they have that tick on the website. There'll be a blue tick that shows that they're registered as an e-commerce sales, and a red tick that shows they're registered for some of the other 3 activities. So that's a good way that someone goes through, because that's an outcome of the registration process. And it's from a consumer perspective, it's probably the government's one of the tools they don't think they advertise it, but should use as a method of reliability and credibility for websites.
Where a company seeks to provide e-commerce services via an e-commerce trading floor or an online promotion website or app, or an online auction website or app, the company also needs to register the e-commerce business lines issued by the relevant DPI and hold the trailing license as well for e-commerce services issued by the relevant Department of Industry of Trade. How does the e-commerce business line registration work, and do foreign investors need ministerial approval for this?
Yeah, so you're first of all, to do trading in Vietnam, you need to have a trading license. You can then work out, once you've got a trading license, whether you are doing online or offline, whether you need retail or you need e-commerce. So you've got that path of trading and then which method you're going through. It's almost a 2-step process. If you want to retail your own product via website, so you can do the online retail, you can do the trading license, and you can do that through that process. And for a foreign investor, there's no issues with doing that. It needs to go through, as you say, DPI and DOIT. If you're trying to do other activities as a foreign business, yeah, you start reaching issues, because you've got to go through ministerial approval, and in most cases there is not necessarily the ability for the ministry to approve it. It's subject to their discretion in many cases, and the e-commerce services business lines aren't mentioned in the WTO commitments, and up until recent changes of laws, that has meant that it's a ministerial judgment whether they approve or not approve. But it's a matter of going through your DPI, which is your business service lines, and then it's a matter of going through the Ministry of Industry and Trade or Department of Industry and Trade for those activities. So it's a 2-step process, and you have to go through in order. You can't register for your website and your operations unless you have the actual business line that you're allowed to do that through the DPI first.
Mm-hmm. And what about the trading license that you mentioned before? How can investors obtain it?
The trading license itself is a process from the Department of, through the DPI, but the Department of Industry and Trade will actually issue that. And you've got to apply, and the first thing they're looking at is making sure you're not trying to restricted products, rice, cooking oils, sugar, it's all within that. So you've got to do certain things to make sure that what you're seeking to trade. You've got to submit a financial plan to show that you've got capability to actually undertake retail activities. Then you've got a bunch of documents you need to submit to go through with the application process. Realistically, it's a 4-5-step process. It's launch of forms, documents. If a company has the financial capacity and the business plan to undertake it before they start, it's really just putting those together in the right format and lodging that with the authorities. And it is just a step-by-step process to go through.
And what would be the recommended approach for foreign companies that are seeking to operate with the e-commerce business license in Vietnam, and how long can the approval process take?
Yeah, so you've got to do in two parts. One, you've got to look at the trading license and how long the trading license takes, and then the e-commerce approval on the other side of that. So if you're looking at the trading license that we're talking about before, 2 to 3 months is the normal case. That's standard. If your documents don't demonstrate financial ability or there's some questions, it may take an extra month or 2 months in the process for assessment. So be prepared to justify why you can undertake trading activities generally and has a financial ability in the business plan, as I mentioned. Once you have that, then you've got to go down the path for the e-commerce. Now, that's actually quite fast. If you've gone through the trading license and you've got everything ready, it can be as little as 3 to 7 days to get your basic e-commerce website approved. If you've got the other activities, so the restricted, the doing the auction websites or the trading websites, the trading floor, you may take longer, and depending upon the restrictions and the foreign investor, that can take a considerable time if it needs ministerial approval, and again, can take months in the process. But if everything is in order, you've got the pre-approvals and everything for the trading license, you're talking 3 days to 12 days, depending upon which one you're after. That's not the issue. It is that trading license is where the difficulties come in to make sure that you meet the requirements.
And one last question from your practical experience. In 2020, we had actually quite a few clients that are coming in from the region to open up e-commerce businesses and activities here in Vietnam. And from your experience managing these clients and helping out to bring them over the line within their licenses, how did you see, or what challenges have you seen within the process, and how did they overcome them?
Yeah, you do see quite a number of issues, and most often it is where someone is trying to undertake or enter in Vietnam a process that hasn't happened before. So a particular novel approach to e-commerce, providing a service in a certain way, or doing something different. And the authorities quite often have trouble sort of putting a square peg in a round hole, making them fit. And when that happens, you get delays. The understanding, and so you really have to do your homework in advance. One of 2 ways. One is plan, get everything, understand, liaise, and trying to submit something that is understandable and comprehensible so the authorities can assess it within the normal process. The other way to get around those problems that we see is stick to your own trading to get your initial trading license, website active, and if you're trying to do something that is going to be, or e-commerce app or whatever it might be, get active and then apply to the authorities for a variation to demonstrate that you have the ability to undertake. Then they're less likely to question, can you undertake it and do you have the ability in the business plan? It is a much easier exercise to assess if you're trying to do a trading or an a platform or a auction website, etc. It's easier for the authorities to deal with it if you've already got the initial approval. So I would recommend that before starting the exercise, plan, understand, and if it's anything outside the norm, you just can't push ahead. You have to really think about from the start which one of those 2 paths you want to go down to make sure that you don't get rejected and that you can undertake the activities you want.
And from a market entry process and strategy, what's your recommendation with creating the structure actually here in Vietnam? Would it be first set up a consulting company and then build upon that and add business lines, or create from the beginning and start from the beginning the process of trading e-commerce with a full-on approach on all the activities that you're planning to do here and business lines?
Yeah, it would depend, Vlad. If I was trying to do something more complicated, I might just do a consulting company first to start up, get things understood, get my back end in order, and then move into the retail trading e-commerce space. If it was a relatively straightforward trading enterprise, if it was just an import or buying from a local market and trading, if it was a very vanilla exercise, I just go straight to starting a trading company with my own website and moving down that path. That's not controversial, that's fine for 100% foreign owned, but if there's any element of it is complicated or if there's multiple parts, I would consider path of least resistance, entering, get the back end set up, dealing with authorities. The question you ask is about, should I have a company set up first or should I wait for the authorities to approve? The longer it's going to take authorities to approve, the longer it is until you can get anything underway, sign labour contracts, sign a lease, do anything. So that if I'm going to have major delays, I want a company set up earlier so I can engage with suppliers, employees, rent, etc. So that the answer, again, just to sort of reiterate, is if it's a simple establishment that's not going to take much time, set up the full company with everything straight away. If it is going to be complicated, take a long time with lots of ministerial approvals, I would be inclined to do a simple company consulting and then get it established and then go through the approval process over time, so I'm not prohibited from undertaking or being in Vietnam and undertaking activities.
Matthew, our time is up. Thank you for your practical advice on this very recent topic and significant for foreign investors in Vietnam. And we both know that the e-commerce sector is booming, or it will be booming, especially after the COVID and the push from the government to initiate these digital transformation.
Yeah, thank you, Vlad. It definitely is. It's a growing area in Vietnam and all around the world, and great to be able to talk to you today about that.
With the investment and proliferation of the internet and electronic devices, e-commerce has become a foundation of how modern society consumes and interacts. In Vietnam, the industry has seen a significant growth in the last 10 years, with many major international players entering the market, and is projected to continue its expansion, attracting successful foreign investors who are seeking to take advantage of the Vietnamese market potential in the digital age. And many thanks to you, our listeners, for tuning in to Advancing Vietnam podcast series. For more information about this topic, please check out our publications on vietnam.acclaim.com. And if you want to reach out to us for any additional details, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn or throughout the website contact details.